Yeah.
What is going on, everybody, and welcome to episode number 20. This is the 20th episode of the Talkin ATL Hawks podcast. Of course, as always, you got the original beautiful crew. You got myself, you got my boy John Joyner, you got my brother Andrew Jefferson. Okay, I was looking. Gorgeous Niang.
This is episode Gorgeous Niang. I couldn't remember it for some reason if Niang was 20 or 22, so I had to go look. But he is 20, so this is episode Gorgeous
Larry
Niang.
Nance is 22. Larry Nance.
Larry Nance is 20.
Larry Nance Jr. Is he junior?
Yeah, not his dad, not his daddy. We're talking about his son.
Okay.
Hey, by the way, what a perfect day to do Gorgeous Niang's episode after the freaking game he had yesterday against the Golden State Warriors. My goodness, that dude was on in that. He was Kyle Korver reincarnated.
I was going to say all this. I had a beautiful intro, and but you know what, Andrew? You know what? I'm glad you said that because this is a beautiful day for it to be a Gorgeous Niang episode and the induction of his new nickname. Trae Young just gave him a new nickname. We will no longer call him Gorgeous Niang. He is now Bang Bang Niang.
Bang, bang,
so that's
Niang.
what we got to refer to him as every time we say his name. Bang Bang Niang. So we're going to start this over. You ready? 3, 2, 1. Bang, bang, Niang, baby. It's episode number 20 of the Talkin ATL Hawks podcast. And we got a beaut for you because, in case you didn't know, if you're wondering why we didn't post last week was because it was spring break. Jordan was off on a nice little trip, spent some time with some friends, right, I believe?
Yeah, friends,
Andrew and I were just chilling at the crib. We were enjoying our nice spring break. But that doesn't mean we're going to leave these past Hawks games stranded. We were going to cover all the games we missed. And if you were wondering if I forgot about my Nick Nurse rant, I have not. I haven't found his contact. This man is impossible to find, but I'm going to find a way around it. If you think I forgot, I did not. That video's coming, but I'm going to find that contact first. So stay tuned. This is not going to die. I'm not going to forget.
He's going to go to some illegal links to get this new contact, and then it's just going to be
the freaking dark web to find Nick Nurse's
stuff. We're going to get raided by the FBI in the middle of one of our episodes, and they're just going to take Chase out. We're just going to – me and John's just going to keep talking like nothing's going on. Until that day comes, I'm going to keep trying. But since we have a lot to cover, we're going to go ahead and get underway. But first, as always, if you haven't kept up with the past couple of episodes, before we start breaking down the Hawks' performance the past couple of games, we got to do a start bench cut. Now, this episode, for my start bench cut, usually we do like players actually that's all we've done is players, but I'm going to switch it up a little bit this time. We're going to be talking about a player, and we are going to start bench cut some of this player's most clutch game winners of his career. And I'm talking about Ice Trae Young. He's got a handful of them, guys.
Okay.
In his 7-year NBA career, Trae Young's got quite the list of some buzzer beater / game winners.
And I got 3 of them in my head. I'm going to list them all out. And I'm a joiner. We're going to start with you, and then we'll go with you, Andrew, and then I'll say mine last.
Fair enough.
Trae Young, start bench cut, 3 of his game, not necessarily buzzer beaters, but game winning shots.
Okay.
So leading off, you got one that happened just about a month ago when we took a chilly visit to the city of Utah, and Trae Young hits a three-quarter court length buzzer beater, almost a full court buzzer beater,
just beyond the half-point line
to take down the Utah Jazz. Still, by the way, is my background. I know it's a little, you can't really see that well. Right over Colin Sexton. So that's number 1. Number 2, we're going to bring it back to 2 years ago in Game 5 of the first round of the Eastern Conference between the Hawks and the Celtics when Trae Young hit the step back deep 3-game winner to force a Game 6, which the Hawks almost won, by the way.
I remember that buzzer beater for a different reason, and that's because literally Chase and I were at his ex-girlfriend's house, actually. I just thought I'd throw that out there.
You could have just said, like a lake.
I could have. But there's a lake that we were it was cold that night. We were shirtless, and there's a lake. And we were like, if the Hawks win this game, we're going to go jump in that lake.
And as soon as Trae hit that shot, we just ran it. We just dropped everything and jumped. And, dude, it was freaking cold. But it fit the theme because ice cold Trae, baby.
My nipples have never been harder.
My nipples have definitely been harder. And it was during our Eastern Conference final run. My nipples were hard. And speaking of that, we're going to on to number 3 is the game that started the Eastern Conference Finals run. Game 1 between the Hawks and the Knicks. Trae Young's floater for the win to beat the Knicks, and that's what really birthed the Trae Young versus New York rivalry. So you got the Utah beyond half-court winner. The game winner gets the Celtics in the first round, and the floater game winner gets the Knicks in the first round. Joyner, I'm going to kick it off to you first. Start, bench, cut. What do you got?
So, I've only seen I only watched 2 of those games live, and it was the Utah game, obviously, and the Celtics playoff game. I'm gonna cut the Knicks just because I unfortunately did not watch the game live. I believe I was on a road trip with my family during that playoff series. I could not watch that game live. I'm going to bench the Utah buzzer beater, and I'm going to start the Celtics buzzer beater for 2 different reasons. One, I watched it live. 2, I was watching it live with the Celtics fan, my friend Jacob, who y'all met.
That's the best.
And
brutal.
And like I remember like his reaction. I can't say what he said because it was, I don't think it's appropriate to say on the podcast, but he was not happy.
It's what a typical Boston person would probably say when their team loses on a game winner. So actually,
he said,
I do want to mention to add a little more flair to the Celtics game winner. Gus Johnson was calling the game, so we got to witness Gus Johnson calling a Trae Young game winner, which does not happen every day. And if you don't know who Gus Johnson is, he is one of the best, if not the best, commentator in all of sports. So literally just look up Gus Johnson on YouTube, and there'll be a compilation of some of his greatest calls. It's a great listen. I recommend it. He makes even the most meaningless games feel like it's the national championship just because of the energy his voice brings. But yes, so Jordan, I'm glad you actually presented that list because mine is, I already was thinking about it at the top of my head. Mine actually looks a lot different. I'm basing, because you can base these buzzer beaters / game winners in an assortment of different ways. You can base it on the moment itself, the difficulty of the shot, the meaning behind like what that buzzer beater depth of the game meant for the Hawks. I'm going to base it on the third thing I said, the depth of the buzzer beater and how it impacted the Hawks. Because I think that adds more of a clutch factor when you're listing these categories. So for me, my cut, I'm going to go straight for the cut, is the Utah Jazz buzzer beater. In terms of difficulty, that is one of Trae Young's most difficult buzzer beaters he's ever made because it's a freaking half-court shot. I mean, that takes precision, that takes skill. And I got to say, the moment was awesome because it was over Colin Sexton, and Trae Young and Colin Sexton had this big back and forth the entire game. So that was a nice way to put it. But it's just a regular season game. It was against a really bad Utah team. The Hawks were kind of expected to win that game already.
Should have never been that close in the first place. And it wouldn't have been if Colin Sexton didn't hit that crazy 3 prior.
And Lauri Markkanen was kind of insane that game too. He had 30 points. But moving right ahead to my bench, I'm going to go what Joyner started. I'm going to go the Celtics buzzer beater for my bench. And here's the reason why. Love the fact that it happened in the Garden, TD Garden, because Madison Square, TD Garden. Love that it happened in TD Garden. Love that it happened to the Celtics, as they're one of my least favorite teams in the entire NBA. And it was in the playoffs, but the Hawks were down 3-1. The series kind of felt lopsided already, and we still had to win 2 more to complete the 3-1 comeback. So that was a nice way to send it back to Atlanta and, add an extra game to the season, give us an extra chance. But the series kind of felt like it already slipped from our fingers. My start is undoubtedly what I'm putting this as a top 3 moment.
personal favorite moment in Hawks history. Trae Young's game winner in Madison Square Garden that sparked, like you said, Chase, the big Trae villain arc in New York. And it started one of the greatest Hawks playoff runs in the entirety of that franchise. And my favorite Atlanta Hawks playoff run, because, I haven't been alive to see a lot of them. I guess aside from 2015/16, but we got swept, so that didn't really feel cool. But my goodness, how many
playoff runs that we had so far? How many playoff runs have we had besides those 2 runs? Not really anything, right?
Yeah. I'm gonna put this out there. If Trae Young didn't get hurt in that Milwaukee series, we probably would have won the freaking series because we took it at 6 games.
And I was taking a step further. I'm convinced we would have beat the Suns in the NBA championship.
Sure.
If we made the finals, I think we would have beat that Suns team.
Sure, absolutely. And another thing, the way that the Trae Young game winner in Madison Square Garden was executed, the fact that John Collins, it was supposed to be a pick and roll play to John Collins, like Trae Young and John did a lot already, but when John set the pick and was ready to roll into the paint, his shoe fell off. His shoe fell off, and the whole play was ruined. So Trae Young had to improvise a brand new mode of attack to get to the rim, and he did just that, hit the floater, and that really set the tone for the entire series. So that's why I put that number 1.
Guys, this is the first time in Talkin ATL Hawks podcast history that since we've been doing start bench cut, every single person has a completely different list.
Okay. Let's hear it.
I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna do start bench cut. So I'm starting. Andrew, I agree with you. Getting my start is the Trae Young buzzer beater against New York. Everything he just said, and I also want to add to the fact that you got to remember that was a 21 season. That was post-COVID. That was right post-COVID. So basically, that entire season, for most of it, fans weren't allowed at any games. And towards the latter half of the season, they started allowing a small crowd. But
50-ish%.
But once the playoffs started, they really started. So that Hawks and Knicks game, that game 1 was one of the first games that allowed basically it was 80% full capacity. So that was the first time in over a year that fan atmosphere, that playoff atmosphere was back from COVID, and that just made that game a little more meaningful. And plus everything Andrew said, the weight of the game, the way the playoff happened, how Trae improvised, and that it really started Trae's villain arc story for New York fans and just the Knicks franchise. But I'm going to bench. I'm actually going to take the Trae Young beyond half-court buzzer beater against Utah. Difficulty of the shot, it was almost a heartbreaker because the Hawks were up when the Jazz had the ball, and then Colin Sexton hit that ridiculous 3 to give him the lead. And Trae Young
to tie the game.
To tie the game. And Trae Young saved all Hawks fans from potential heartbreak. But I'm going to cut the Trae Young game winner against the Celtics. Now, yes, that was a playoff game. But, Andrew, I think you kind of spoke for me when you were talking about how, that series almost felt over. Yes, that game did set up the Hawks for a potential huge series comeback. We almost did win Game 6. But no one's ever come back down 3-1 other than LeBron James in the finals. So that would have been that's almost an impossible feat. And also, the step back was cool. It was in front of a packed TD Garden against the Celtics in the playoffs. However, Trae's done that before. We've seen Trae take that deep shot
this season.
That's multiple times. Actually, in his career, we've seen that type of shot before, but we have never seen a shot like the beyond half-court buzzer beater until it actually happened. So those are my reasonings. Those are my listings. I love the fact that every single one of us had a different.
No, that was good. That was really good. I do want to correct you though. Teams have come back down 3-1. That was just the first time it happened in the finals.
You're right, because I just forgot when Golden State beat Denver. No, that wasn't 3-1.
No,
that was just the first time an 8 seed beat a 1 seed.
Yeah, and but
no one's came back down.
No, because Golden State, the same season, they blew the 3-1 lead, came back down 3-1 against OKC.
They did. I'm stupid. It's happened many times before.
Yes, that's the first time it happened in the NBA
Can we? I'm going to cut that out. I'm going to erase that out. Well, let's start over. I'm ending the episode. We're just going to start over.
Yeah.
For that was a stupid moment. I'm sorry, y'all. I apologize.
Right, okay. We're good. We're good.
I'm gonna cover up my stupid comment, and we're gonna hop right back in to where we left off. in episode 19, where we left off. The Hawks just finished their back-to-back against the Pacers, where they won both games. A huge momentum shift for the Hawks, and that's kind of something we broke down. So if you want to hear more about that, go tune into episode 19. So we're going to go back to March 10th. The game right at that Monday following that.
Why do I feel like we did this game already? Because that's when you went your whole.
Yeah, we did.
Your whole rant. Oh, because we recorded on Monday. So we're starting with the Hornets.
We'll start with the Hornets. Good call, Andrew. Good call. And Joyner, thank you for that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm sorry. So actually we're going back to March 12th, that Wednesday following the Sixers game. So the Hawks we're heading into Charlotte. We're on a 3-game winning streak, beating the Pacers back-to-back at home, and then finishing the homestand with a big dominant win against the Sixers. And now we're finishing the homestand, hosting the Charlotte Hornets, a struggling team that in past the Hawks have struggled against, but this has been a different story this season.
About time we rewrote the narrative.
Because P.J. Washington and Terry Rozier is gone. Those are Terry Rozier and P.J. Washington. That era of the Hornets is just a Hornets team the Hawks couldn't beat.
And Nicholas Batum. You remember Nicholas Batum used to drop like these casual 20-pointers for no reason?
I do. Absolutely, I do.
It was random.
But
so random.
This year's different. The Hawks have not struggled against the Hornets this year, and that did not change on March 12th, that Wednesday, when the Hawks went on to win 123-110. It was a really close first half. The Hawks went at halftime with only a 3-point lead, but it was that really big 37-point third quarter that kind of created the separation and helped the Hawks cruise to a 13-point win. And it was all, this was a big marquee game for Trae Young, dropping 35 points, 12 assists. He was 3 rebounds away from a triple-double. Now, he did shoot 0 for 5 from beyond the arc, which is, of course, obviously very odd for Trae Young, but he did make every single free throw. He went 21 for 21 at the free throw line, which is an insane amount of free throws, and to have that many attempts and to make them all, it's what an NBA player should do, but not all NBA players can do that. Actually, hardly anyone can do that, so very impressive for Trae Young.
And that was one shy of a career high. He either tied his career high for most free throws in a game or was one shy. I can't remember if it was a tie or if his career is 22. Regardless, like you said, Chase, shooting free throws should be automatic, but
especially for an NBA player.
Especially for an NBA player, but to have 21 in a game and to make all 21 is incredible. Because you don't ever it's called the charity stripe for a reason. You don't want to ever leave 3 points up for grabs. In a game that didn't really go down to the wire because we won by 13, but it was close for the majority of the game. So those free throws felt like it held a lot of weight. So that was really impressive to see that from a guard, from Trae Young, because especially for a guard, you should be able to make those flawlessly.
Very underappreciated arcs to the game now, because people don't realize how important free throws are until you lose the game and then you look back and realize how different the game would have been if you made your free throws. But
I mean, honestly, it has to take a whole quarter just to take his free throws.
That night, the Hawks didn't have to ask that question because we execute at the free throw line. And if y'all remember that whole 4-game homestand where the Hawks won all 4 games, it was the bench that stepped up big time. And it was the same story against the Hornets, because you look at the bench and not anyone had big numbers, but everyone had good numbers. You had Karis LeVert shooting 5 for 9 with 15 points. He went 4 for 8 beyond the arc. Gorgeous Niang went 3 for 5 with 12 points. Terrence Mann shot 50% with 10. Vit Krivich shot 3 for 4, 3 for 3 beyond the arc with 11 points. And when you have that type of production for your bench, I don't think people realize how much weight that takes off the starters, because these are the guys that's getting the most minutes. So when they can get their rest and rest comfortably knowing your bench is going to step up, that does wonders for a team.
This is a game where I felt like the bench played better than the starting 5. I mean, because aside from Trae Young's 35 night, Dyson had 10, Okongwu had 7, Zachary had 8, Muhammad Gay only had 6. I mean, we had only 2 double-digit scores of the starting 5, and the other 3 were very underwhelming. But you had 4 players on the bench reach double figures, and Dominique Barlow, which shout out to your new contract extension, buddy, was one shy from – Dominique Barlow was 1 point away from the entire bench getting double figures. To me, that is wildly impressive. Wildly impressive. But, Joyner, what did you like in this game?
I mean, like we already covered. I mean, like Trae Young shooting 21 free throws and making all of them is borderline insane. Like, I mean, like you think. You would think like after like 5 or 6 free throws, like you would stop fouling him, and no, like 21.
Yeah,
like no, that's
they learn.
like it's what I'm saying. But again, like, I mean, like I know that our starters didn't do well. Didn't do well. I didn't do well for the most part, like scoring wise, but like defensive wise. Again, we got to reiterate. Dyson Daniels 4 steals. Trae Young had a steal. Muhammad Gay had 2 steals. And then Dyson also had 2 blocks, along with Muhammad Gay's 2 blocks as well. So it's pretty good. It's a pretty good like defensive. Defensively from our starters when they didn't show up offensively, but yeah, no, like y'all sound like our bench like pretty much like took over for our starters and gave our starters much needed rest. So it's a pretty good showing from our bench, and I think that's our this is probably like our best game that our bench has had yet.
Absolutely, and
I don't disagree.
It's funny because it's the exact opposite for the Hornets that night because it was their starting lineup that absolutely carried that game while their bench did absolutely nothing. Because if you look at the Hornets numbers that night, of course, LaMelo Ball dropped 25, though he shot the ball terribly. Mikal Bridges had the best night, shooting 11 for 19, 31 points, 11 rebounds. I'm sorry, I did. I just realized I said Mikal Bridges. Thank you for that, Joyner. I'm sorry, Miles Bridges. You're absolutely right.
That entire week off has really done a number on Chase.
That's what I'm saying. Like I'm all out of sorts tonight. That's probably not going to be the last time y'all correct me tonight.
But to me, the real story. I know we have a lot to get into, so we'll move on quickly. But 21 turnovers from the Hornets, and I mean, of course, the great barrier thief Dyson Daniels contributed with his 4 steals. I know the Hornets are young, and I know they're inexperienced, and that inexperience is kind of why Trae Young kept going to the free throw line because they weren't experienced enough to know that Trae Young is going to stop on his little trip to the basket, wait for the defender on his back to draw close, and then scoot back into him and draw the foul. He did that every single time, and the Hornets never adjusted because they just didn't know how to adjust. So that inexperience kind of played a factor for them in a lot of different ways. But, I mean, they just – 21 turnovers. I don't think I had to explain myself because 21 turnovers is way too much if you're trying to haunt a Hawks team who was really clicking on all cylinders aside from the three-point ball. I think our percentage was quite low. 38%. It's actually not that bad, but regardless, I mean, it was too much for the Hornets to slow down already. And when you factor in the inexperience and you factor in the free throws and the turnovers, there's no shot they're going to win that game down the stretch.
So, with that win against the Hornets, the Hawks extended their winning streak to 4 games, and they were continuing such a dominant month of basketball here in the month of March, and they were looking forward to a really big home game that Friday night against the LA Clippers. Bogey Bogdanovic returned to Atlanta. It was going to be an emotional ride in State Farm Arena. It was, but for the wrong reasons. And for the reasons why it was emotional, I'm going to pass it to you, John Joyner. Break down what was that nightmarish night on March 14th against the Clippers.
That box score makes me crazy. That box score makes me crazy.
I was wrong again. It was this Clippers game that ended that 5-game homestand, not the Hornets game. It was that Clippers game. I'm sorry I'm all out of sorts.
The Clippers game was
it's all coming back to me.
The Clippers game was very forgettable.
So what I saw from this game was prime Kawhi and prime James Harden, and when you put those two in your prime, I believe you get a NBA championship. Now, will this team win an NBA championship? Probably not. But James Harden dropped 25 points, 7 assists, 8 rebounds. And Kawhi had 25 points, six boards, and 2 assists, with 5 steals. So there's another good defender, former Depoy himself. But Trae Young didn't have the best shooting. Night shooting 6 for 18. Dyson had a worse shooting night with shooting 2 for 12. and only having 3 steals, and then like our bench was I'm having a bit of a quiet night. Gorgeous Niang shooting a goose egg 0 for 5, 0 for 3 from 3. But maybe as we were mentioning, like shooting percentages, the Hawks shot 27% from 3, and that's not going to win you basketball games. And shooting that from 3 is not going to shoot basketball games.
And you're absolutely right, Joyner. And the lack of help that the Hawks got from their bench tonight, and just shooting in general from beyond the arc, which is a much needed art in today's NBA game. But to me, get to the meat of it. What was really rip it off like a man. Because if you look at the first half, the Hawks were playing a great basketball game. We headed into the half up by 8 with an 8-point lead. Lots of momentum. We won both quarters. We're riding a 4-game winning streak. We're up by 8 heading to halftime. This game would have put us 1 game under 500, ladies and gentlemen. It was looking like we were going to spoil Bogey's return to State Farm Arena and extend our winning streak to 5. And like Andy said, get ourselves 1 game under 500, push ourselves closer to the 6th seed. But then you look at that third quarter box score. We lost it 35-8. Now you will occasionally see this year we've seen little instances where the Hawks have just had bad offensive performances. I remember that trip to Golden State, like it's the second month into the season. I remember what's another really bad the game against Denver when we played Denver and our team shot absolutely horrible. The first time we went to Chicago this year, absolutely horrible shooting performance. Absolutely, but that's within a game. But I don't know. I can't remember. Actually, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know if in my history of watching a Hawks basketball game, I do not know if there's been a single time I've seen the Hawks score in single digits in 1 quarter. I legit don't know. And if there was, I can't recall. I can't even begin to describe to you. It wasn't just like, now 35 points is a lot in a quarter, but it's the current NBA. That happens pretty often now. However, so it wasn't like a complete Clippers offensive takeover. It was a complete offensive shutdown for the Atlanta Hawks, just completely, and they just had no answer. We had open looks, we just weren't hitting, and we also caused a lot of turnovers that quarter, and the Clippers went crazy in transition, and everything that could have went wrong did go wrong in that third quarter, and it just set the tone for the rest of the night. If I saw a 35-8 box score for an Atlanta basketball game, I'd be like, oh, the dream must be playing. That's normal. But it was the Atlanta Hawks, and that's not normal. That's not okay. Absolutely unacceptable. And I think the main meat of like what went wrong in that third quarter is the Hawks did win both those quarters. The Hawks were doing the give and go off the pick and roll. We were executing a good transition, fast break movement. We were getting the ball inside of Congo, had a great game in the paint. I want to shout out Tyronn Lue because whatever adjustments he made in that halftime, the locker room speech on how to halt Trae Young's ball movement, how to get him stagnant, how to get the Hawks idle, especially on the off-ball side of things where Trae Young was able to connect with those passes. Because in the third quarter, we didn't really have that many turnovers, but then you look at the final box score, and the Hawks finished the game with 18 turnovers. We had a lot of turnovers in that third quarter. No, I said first half. Oh, you said third quarter. First half. We had we had a lot of turnovers in that third quarter. First half, the Hawks were playing a fairly clean game, but in that third quarter is really when those 18 turnovers kind of all came to a point. And Doc Rivers found a defensive method where Trae Young was forced to make bad passes. There was no longer any space on the wings where our guards could really call in for those pick and roll screens. Okongwu was kind of getting double teamed in the paint, so his impact of the game was halted. The Hawks were getting fast break opportunities, and we were turning over. And when we were turning over the ball at midcourt. So it was just what the amount of pressure that the Clippers were applying on the front court was really taking away all the backcourt momentum that the Hawks had. Yeah. And it was a disaster. It was nothing short of a disaster. We do have some more games to cover, so we are going to keep it moving. But I will read off because this was Bogey's return to Atlanta. He's been coming off the bench in LA. He did play 21 minutes, had a really efficient shooting night, shot 4 for 6 from the field, 2 for 2 from beyond the arc, dropped a quiet 12 points. So nothing crazy, but a very efficient night. So after that heartbreaking loss against LA that ended our homestand and ruined our winning streak, the Hawks were headed up to New York, not to play their favorite Knicks, but to play the Brooklyn Nets, who on paper, they're not that bad of a team, but it's a team the Hawks should have won. But if you know anything about the Hawks in recent years, every time we play in Brooklyn, it's never a pretty performance. And I wish I could say that it was a different story on the night of or the afternoon of Sunday, March 16th, but it was actually the exact same story. And Andrew, break it down for us.
Yeah, so the Hawks were coming off a huge homestand, although it didn't end the way we want to. Won 4 of the 5 games, and that is a well-rounded homestand. That's the momentum we need to boost the middle half portion of our schedule in March. That was fairly easy. I mean, we got past the hump over the Clippers, but then our next 2 games consisted of the Nets and the Hornets, 2 very winnable games. You don't want to leave those should-win games off the board because at this point in the season, every win matters. And the Hawks bumped down to 2 shy under 500. We really need to get this one in our and under our belt so we could go to Charlotte and get ourselves to 500. And Chase and I, we have been to the Barclays Center before. Absolutely beautiful stadium. The atmosphere there is great. They have a whole
even when the Nets are bad. Those are some pretty. Brooklyn has some pretty loyal fans.
They do, and they kind of mirror what the Hawks do with
their court. I think the court is awful.
Say again.
What'd you say?
I just don't like their court. I think they're ugly. The court itself is ugly. I just don't like their court.
Oh, I kind of like it.
I do. I'm actually with Chase. I kind of like the court design, but it's different. It definitely is different, but I kind of mess with it.
Yeah, it's different. I don't know. I haven't fallen. I don't know. That's just me. I don't know. That's me. I just don't like it.
It's a hit or miss for some people. It just depends. It just depends.
It really soaks up the culture of Brooklyn, though. So once you kind of spend some time in Brooklyn, you kind of appreciate it because it's like, it just makes sense.
They're going for that graffiti type look.
Yeah, and look, the only thing that sucks about Barclays Center, and it's really the thing that sucks about New York in general, is I have never seen a Dasani water bottle cost $12 anywhere. But you have
a single cookie is almost $5. A single cookie is almost $5.
I bought a box of Sour Patch Kids for $5. It was just your little standard box for $5.
You can get that for 99 cents.
That's what you can get that for 99 cents at the dollar store. I'm like, I thought State Farm Arena's prices were a little iffy, but it made State Farm's prices look like the McDonald's value menu because of how freaking expensive it was. But everything's expensive in New York, so I mean, I guess it didn't really surprise me.
Everything's bigger in New York. Everything is bigger there. So
I do say that.
So let's go back to basketball because this was the other disappointing thing about the trip to New York. I really want to say that I guess the lack of big man help is, I think, what kind of resulted in the loss for this game. I feel like Trae Young had a nice game. He had 28 points, 12 assists. He had 6 turnovers. So over the course of his last 2 games, that was 13 combined turnovers. A little much for Trae Young. Okongwu had one of the best games of his season. 21 points, 15 rebounds, 3 box blocks, and 3 steals. That is a loaded stat line for a young guy like Okongwu. But then you look over to the other forward position. Mohamed Gay, who really has been a big defensive improvement for the Hawks.
Yeah.
Just his entire rim protection scheme. But it seemed like all of that kind of went away. And we go back to the very first game of the season. Go back to when this all began.
Against Brooklyn.
And the guy that was the thorn in the Hawks' side in that game, though the Hawks won our first meeting, Cam Johnson. I know there's been a lot of Trae Young got snubbed in the All-Star game. LaMelo got snubbed in the All-Star game. But Cam Johnson has been one of the most underappreciated guards in the NBA.
It's only because he doesn't do this on a consistent night.
No, he does. He's averaged 19 points in 3 assists.
That's not all-star numbers.
It's not all-star numbers, but I didn't say he was an all-star. I just said he's been one of the most underappreciated guards in the NBA. And he really paid dividends there with a 28-point performance. But this is when I think the Hawks had a lack of big man help. Because even though Okongwu was doing everything right on the offensive side of the board, and he did have the 3 blocks and 3 steals, but Cam Johnson was getting to the paint, especially in the third and fourth quarter, like the Red Sea was parting. And it was almost like Cam Johnson, like he's a great mid-range shooter. His game really mirrors DeJounte Murray to me. And it seemed like Muhammad Gay, who was assigned to Cameron Johnson once he got past Dyson Daniels, couldn't figure out how to stop the little step-back motion, the post fadeaways, the post movement all entirely. And the points that he was getting down the stretch of that game came too easy for him. And then it just became a game of runs where the Hawks would stay in there. There was a lot of ties and a lot of lead changes. But then when Cam Johnson got hot towards the end of that third quarter and the Hawks offense went cold for like a 2 or 3 minute stretch, it elevated to like a 12-2 run for the Nets, a 15-2 run for the Nets. And it got to a point where the Nets got to this 8 and 6 point margin, and the Hawks just couldn't collect the defensive stops to get themselves back in that game. Because, I mean, even Keon Johnson for the Nets, he was shot 4 3-pointers in that game that proved to be really huge down the stretch. And they even had some good performance off the bench. You had Lewis and Watford getting in double figures. And, I mean, the Hawks, Terrence Mann and Vic Krejci had some good games, but Dominic Barlow didn't apply any help off the bench when Trey had to sit down. Dyson Daniels, he did great defense. He didn't do anything wild defensively, I guess. He had 4 steals, but only 14 points. And the Hawks were just right there. We lost the game by 8, but once Cam Johnson started going and the Nets went on that big run down at the end of that third quarter, the Hawks couldn't find that consistency in the fourth to get back in the game. And it was a tough one. It was a tough one to drop. I'm not going to lie.
I think another issue for sure is it was almost a mirror image in terms of 3-point shooting for the Hawks, like the previous game against the Clippers. Because you look at the Nets, it was just a story of efficient shooting all around, shooting 40% from the field, 48%. That's shy under 50% from the outside shot. And when you take 35 3-pointers and you're shooting borderline 50%, that is a dominant performance beyond the arc. And then you look right at the Hawks, 11 for 37. That's 30%.
Left a lot to be desired.
We know today's NBA game, a big portion of the game is how you shoot beyond the arc, because every team is going to take about 35, 37 attempts from beyond the arc. So if you're cold and the other team's hot, it's a hard game to manage. That's exactly what happened that Sunday afternoon. Joyner, do you have any thoughts on this Brooklyn game before we shoot it back?
I think I already said it when I texted you all about it. I think it was a game that we should have won. We could have won, but the past is past. Let's move on. So,
and it was
yeah.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Joyner.
I'm not gonna. I was done. I was done. You go ahead.
So the Hawks, the back-to-back but tough losses, the heartbreaking third quarter against the Clippers, just the rough shooting performance in Brooklyn against the Nets. But this is just a short little 2-game stamp. And like Andrew mentioned, this was a 2-game road stamp against the Nets and the Hornets. And the Hawks, on paper, were supposed to win to get to 500, hoping we could break 500 when we come back home against Golden State. But the next game was rough, so we on our birthday, March 18th, that Tuesday night, the Hawks traveled down to Charlotte. Like I mentioned before, this has been a Charlotte team that this season the Hawks have finally played so well against. And just a couple games prior, they just had a nice 13-point win against the Hornets at home. Now they're in Charlotte, and they have an even bigger win here on the road, a 32-point dominant showing from the Hawks, 134-102. And this is really exemplified a beautiful example of team basketball from the Atlanta Hawks. So we won 134-102. There was really no instance in this entire game that it was close. You had Trae Young dropping 31 points. Dyson Daniels added 22 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists. He was just shy of a triple-double. And, the Hornets were a lot more shorthanded this night than the previous night when the Hawks were playing State Farm Arena. So they reached into their book a little bit, and their bench had to play bigger numbers than they were used to because they still went 5 deep. But you had Smith Jr. 27 minutes. You had Garrett playing 24 minutes. And like I just mentioned before about the Hornets bench, it's quite terrible. So it don't matter how many minutes you give them, they're going to perform the same.
They didn't have LaMelo Ball in this game as opposed to the last game. And
they did have Curry. They did have Curry though. So you think that was Curry? They would.
It's just the wrong Curry brother.
You saw the transition because when the Hornets played in Atlanta,
I was making a joke there, but he's wearing 30. He's wearing 30 as well.
I picked up on your joke, Joyner. I thought it was funny.
Thank you. Jeez.
I'm just saying when the Hornets, as bad as they are, as lackluster of offensive weapons they have already, when LaMelo's not in there, they have no source of any efficiency.
You saw the shift in the lineup because their bench was playing more minutes. And when the Hornets were playing at Atlanta, Seth Curry only had 11 minutes off the bench, but this night he had 25 minutes in the starting lineup and actually shot pretty efficiently, 6 for 11, 4 for 6 from 3, 19 points. But not a single player even scratched the 20-point mark, which it just shows the overall shooting woe from Charlotte. They shot 45% from the field, but only 33% from 3, which isn't bad, but not as good as 53% from the field like Atlanta and 49% from beyond the arc. We had players, like I mentioned, Trae Young, 31 points, 8 assists, shot 11 for 20. Dyson Daniels, 22 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists. And I'm going to talk about his shooting performance. 10 for 12 from the field. That's almost as efficient as that's as close to perfect as you can really get. And then you had Zachary Ricochet, who just within this span of 2 weeks, adding on to his rookie, the month award in February, and just having an even more dominant month of March, a very good chance he wins back-to-back Rookie of the Month awards, and he's just climbing that rookie ladder as he's now sitting behind Castle, who is currently in first place. But Zachary here shot 7 for 15, 5 for 9 from beyond the field, 21 points, 8 rebounds. You had a Kongwu, 15 points, 10 rebounds, shooting 50%. Then you look at the bench, Dominic Barlow, really good performance, 6 for 11, 12 points, 6 rebounds. Terrence Mann shot 5 for 8, 12 points. And it just goes on and on. In the starting lineup, off the bench, the Hawks have showed a very efficient shooting performance. And with the lack of the Hornets roster, with no LaMelo, their bench, who's already horrible, having to go even longer minutes, the Hawks were just able to suffocate them defensively. He's like Andrew said, though Seth Curry had a pretty good game, he's the next man up when LaMelo Ball's out. And when Seth Curry is your next man up, not Steph Curry, when Seth Curry is your next man up, when your star player's out, that's how you know your roster is very weak. And they just had no answer other than going to Curry. Jeffries had a pretty good night. He shot 8 for 12, 19 points. But that was really it. Just them two getting 19, and that was pretty much it. The Hawks were able to wear out their starting lineup, especially their bench, and just doing whatever they want, getting all kinds of transition points, as we saw the Hornets have a total of 17 turnovers, a lot of fast break opportunities there for Atlanta. They dominated inside, especially with the tall lineup of Onyeka Okongwu and Zachary Ricochet and Mo Gay. All 3 of them in the starting lineup is a cheat code, especially when the Hornets don't have hardly any size. They were just absolutely dominating within the paint. And then, of course, Trae Young, just being the sophisticator that he is, orchestrating the offense, doing his thing from the outside, and then Dyson Daniels giving him his support defensively and offensively because, of course, Dyson Daniels added 3 more steals to his season resume. The bench did their thing. It was just a beautiful night, and it was a nice little way to sweep that tough little 2-game losing streak under the rug and just getting back to winning ways and setting up a perfect preparation for what was supposed to be a tough game against Golden State at home, but when Steph Curry obviously had that injury, it made it a little less tough. We'll get to that game in a minute. Just a beautiful, beautiful representation of team basketball for the Atlanta Hawks.
And I think you said that at the very start, Chase. I think this game, especially that outburst in the third quarter, is the first game, and we're going to get to that Golden State. This Golden State game that we're about to get into is by far my favorite game of the entire season in terms of how the Hawks played. Might be the best I've ever seen the Hawks look in my 22 years of living, and I say that with no exaggeration.
And I just said that this Hornets game was a perfect representation of team basketball, but the very next game, the Hawks were somehow able to top that.
Yeah, and
it was against a more impressive roster, which also adds some weight to it.
Yes.
Calm down.
I'm that gone, buddy. You talked a lot there. I'm just trying to go ahead and get my point out. But yeah, and it made me lose my train of thoughts. But just beautiful display of team basketball. And I think this is the game. And I think the Hawks are going to look back at it at the end of the season. Hopefully, if all things go well, when we had that 6th seed locked up and we don't have to play in the play-in tournament, I think the Hawks are going to look back at this game to be the true turning point of the Hawks, I guess, burst towards the end of the season, because that third quarter specifically, I have never seen the Hawks team come together. And it's really a special moment because it involves all the players that the Hawks acquired during that trade deadline with Terrence Mann, Karis LeVert, Gorgeous Niang.
Especially Gorgeous Niang.
And I know the Hawks kind of felt they gave
Terrence Mann. You said Terrence Mann, Karis LeVert, and who?
Gorgeous Niang.
No, who?
Bang, bang, bang.
Bang, bang, Niang.
Thank you.
Bang, bang,
Thank
Niang.
you.
I was going to say, I know I'm saying his name right. Bang, bang, Niang. Sorry about that. Yeah, I'll get used to it, I promise. But yeah, and because I know Hawks fans especially were kind of looking at Landry Fields as like, you just gave away the biggest chunk of all the promise the Hawks had left when Jalen Johnson
We've been looking at him like that for a while.
When we traded DeAndre Hunter away, and then we traded Bogey away and trade away all those 3 additional second-round picks. And it just seemed like the Hawks were giving up on the season. But then you see the debt that Landry Fields was going for, and you're seeing it all come together. And then you're seeing the confidence really pour out of Zachary Richardson, the rookie from France. I mean, it's just the way that he kind of commands the court and he kind of piggybacks off what Trae Young does at the top of the guard position and how his role at the 4th spot really comes that. And I think he's just really finding out his true identity and his true role on his team. And that's where the confidence is coming from. And then you look at Dyson Daniels. Chase, you talked about his offensive numbers. Dyson Daniels, I think we can all agree, he's been dominating defensively. I think this actually happened during this game.
It happened tonight, yeah.
He got, this game right here. He solidified the most steals in a single NBA season in 15 years after this game here in Charlotte. If that's not right there at the top of the resume, what catches all the eyes of the guys up in New York, that right there should put him at number 1 on the defense player of the list. I don't care who else is contending for him right now. Most steals in a single season in 15 years, unbelievable. And like I said, defensively, he's been dominating consistently. But I think, especially over the course of February and the early stages of March, we have seen Dyson Daniels' offensive side of his gameplay really develop. And that goes from his floater game, that goes from his established three-point shot, and it's just ability to finish with hard contact at the rim. It's really been a beautiful flower to watch blossom with Dyson Daniels on the offensive side. But Joyner, what you like? What'd you like in this game?
I mean, I like the fact that we didn't have to face against Curry. Praise up to Curry. Hope he gets better soon. But I mean, whenever Curry's on it's always a tough game, but like I mean, it's like not having them out there to play with Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green. I'm sorry, just I'm sorry, just Jimmy Butler because Draymond Green's not relevant anymore. But yeah.
It's true though. I guess.
But I mean, I mean, like, like for me, like, I think the one guy that stood out to me, this game was Double O, Okongwu with the only missing 6 shots from the field, shooting 2 for 3 from 3. 12 rebounds, 6 assists, 22 points. I think he's one of the guy that stands out for me. For my stars, but on the bench, like we mentioned, Bang Bang Niang, shooting 8 for 11, 6 for 9 from 3. With 23, 23 points. I think those guys didn't stand out for me because stand enough for me because of what y'all have been saying about the trade we made with the Cows back at the deadline. Just getting away Hunter and getting those three guys from the Clippers and the Cavs. So those are my thoughts.
And like mentioned that Charlotte game. When I said that Charlotte game was a perfect representation of team basketball. The Hawks back to back managed to beat that out, and I completely agree with Angie. This was the most beautiful example of team basketball that I've ever seen from the Atlanta Hawks in my history of watching this team.
Right from the tip, literally right from the tip off.
It was right from the tip off, and it all started with a beautiful first quarter outburst, winning that first quarter 40-23, and though Golden State won the next 2 quarters 32-29, well, actually they won every quarter ever since, and they made a little bit of a fourth quarter comeback.
That just shows how strong that first quarter was.
So that 40-23 first quarter set the tone for the entire night, and like you said, Joyner, Okongwu, he was short of a triple double. Dyson Daniels himself was even short of a triple double.
We've had a lot of players come just shy of a triple double as of late.
He put on a defensive galore performance against Golden State, adding 3 more steals to his tally. And I just want to point out something here. Golden State was actually, even without Curry, Golden State was a 3.5-point favorite heading into this game. And I just feel like that's very disrespectful because,
especially in Atlanta, as well as we've been playing in State Farm Arena lately.
Yeah, the Hawks were missing Garrison Matthews. I mean, he's been out due to injury. Honestly, we didn't have
Garrison Matthews been out for a while.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But other than them two, we had a completely healthy lineup. So basically, the Hawks have had the same line that we've had for weeks on end, and the Warriors were. Yeah, they had their same lineup, but without Curry. We all know that when Curry's not a part of this current Warriors team, they're very lackluster, and that showed with outside of Jimmy Butler had a pretty incredible game. They really had no answer to offense. I mean, yeah, you can look at Moses Moody, who shot 7 for 13, 20 points. Ponzicki, who had 19 points, shooting 6 for 14. And you even had Kuminga, who I think is a very underrated player in the league, dropping 16 off the bench. But that's just not enough when you have a Hawks team loaded with Trae Young dropping 25, Okongwu 22, Gorgeous Niang dropping 23 from the bench. Which, by the way, it was this game against Golden State that birthed the nickname Bang Bang Niang, given by Trae Young himself. And the reason Trae Young even gave him that nickname was because of something he pulled off in the third quarter. He went on. It was almost a mirror exact representation of Kyle Korver's 12 points in 60 seconds, except this wasn't in 60 seconds, but he hit back-to-back-to-back-to-back threes. He hit back-to-back-to-back threes, like within back-to-back-to-back possessions, and then I think like a couple possessions next, while he was still hot, he was in the corner guarded up. You know how like he's kind of a bigger guy, so he's a little slow. So this is the type of guy who takes step backs. But he took a dribble in, step back in the corner. It wasn't even a good step back. The man was still in his face, but he continued to hit a rainbow 3 and drained it, and that absolutely
sent State Farm Arena in a freaking frenzy, and that was the whole moment that gave Trae Young, that gave Gorgeous Niang the Bang Bang Niang nickname. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go back and watch the highlights of this game. It's an absolute beautiful sight to see. But with back-to-back team performance like this, but within the Hornets and the Warriors, we're looking at a Hawks team that we thought they lost momentum when they lost the back-to-back with the Clippers and the Nets. We thought this was a team that was losing the momentum, and just when we thought they were getting closer and closer to that 6th seed, we thought they were backsliding. But the two recent games between the Hornets and the Warriors completely flipped that script, and now all of a sudden we're looking at this Hawks team that's like, hey, they're actually utilizing the pieces that they got in the trade deadline, and they are turning it into a beautiful form of team chemistry, and I think that is a big allude to Quinn Snyder, because Quinn Snyder has always been a chemistry guy, and we saw it during her stint in Utah when they got new players in. Quinn Snyder just did a great job at taking them and helping them become a big asset on the team, even then when they were surrounded stars like Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, and he's doing the same thing here. Yes, he got Niang. Yes, he got Mann. Yes, he got LeVert, and he is using them to help this team that's already star-studded with Trae Young, Okongwu, used to be Jalen Johnson, and Dyson Daniels as well, who was also a newcomer. So this is a big allude to you, Quinn Snyder, and that is why I absolutely love him as the Atlanta Hawks head coach. But now, to wrap this episode up, I thought you gave your thoughts on this game.
No.
I'm not.
When did I get the chance to talk about this game? Hold on. I was over here talking about how this has been one of my favorite games in Hawks history. You ain't going to let me talk about it? That's downright disrespectful. You know what? Move on for a little bit.
No, absolutely not.
No,
absolutely not. I refuse to give up my ground. I don't give it up that easily, bud.
I get this spotlight here. That's disrespectful. I was over here boasting about this game, and you're just going to take all the words out of my mouth. Absolutely not. No, okay. This is what I absolutely love about the game, and this is why I think I go back to Quinn Snyder and how he develops new players and how he gets them to soar with a team. He really utilizes players to their strength, and it takes a while for you to figure out what those strengths are and how it's going to complement the players that have been established in that system for a while. But you take Zach Reed for a while, and this is going to go to allude to my further case as to why he should be Rookie of the Year by far over Castle. Look about how this game started from the tip. The moment the Hawks won the tip, and the Golden State actually won the tip, in the first Hawks possession, we directed the ball to Zach Reed. Zach Reed is over by the wing. Jimmy Butler was off, I guess, playing that wing defense. But Zach Reed knows the immediate space that he got backed off from Jimmy Butler, and he just fired a three. I mean, Zach Reed, this is a shot that he's been establishing more over the past few months, and he got the Hawks going right off the rip. And then there's a reason why the Hawks are, I believe, 6th in the NBA right now on most points per game, because Quinn Snyder knows that these Hawks players have the hot hand, and the Hawks are grown really, really efficient from not just a three-point line, but all over the court in the span of 4 quarters. And Quinn Snyder knows that the Hawks can establish confidence from anywhere, especially the three-point line early in the game, that can get the Hawks rolling as early as the first quarter, and we can put up a spurt like 40 points like we did in this game. It doesn't matter if the Hawks drop the second, the third, or the fourth quarter, as long as we don't let our backs lean against the wall too much and we stay consistent and we continue to utilize Dyson's defensive presence at the guard position and Muhammad Gay's growing rim protecting skills inside the paint. The Hawks can stay within a team and bounce back and forth between I guess a wider margin deficit. And that's how the Hawks can win games down the stretch. Because one thing that us Hawks fans know that we've been struggling on, lately, the one thing that us Hawks fans know we've been struggling on a lot in the past is the Hawks have had trouble winning close games down the stretch. So Quinn Snyder, to complement those struggles, if we know that we can establish a lead and command early in the game and get a wide margin deficit like we did in that first quarter with 40 points, then it doesn't matter if we lose second, third, fourth quarters. We can minimize teams' runs down the stretch, and that way we don't have to worry about losing those close games. And that's why I think the Hawks did very well in this game. And, yeah, that was just a great offensive outpour in that first quarter. Bench was complimenting the starters were complimenting the bench, and Draymond Green needs to stick to being an analyst because he is washed. I mean, he does not offer any leadership. He does not offer any complimentary basketball. He's just stagnant on the court. It was kind of sad, honestly, because it's kind of like watching your dog die. Honestly, like Draymond Green, it's just like, what quality of life does he have left on the court? I mean, it was really rough. That was not Draymond Green on the court. I'm not a big Draymond Green.
He's not relevant anymore. That's what I'm saying. He's not relevant. That's why he keeps kicking people in the ball and the net and the ball is to stay relevant. That's why they keep talking about it, because he keeps getting technicals and he keeps like trying to end people's bloodlines by keeping playing the ball and choking people out. That's the only way he stays relevant.
And he's
not a scorer. He's not really good, that great of a defender anymore. He's not relevant.
He doesn't even like the direction this current NBA is going. He trashes it all the time when he is as an analyst on TNT. So if you're even playing a sport that you don't even like anymore, he already considered retiring once when he was dealing with those injuries. And it was actually Adam Silver, funny enough, that had to convince Draymond Green not to retire. But I mean, it's not a lack of care. It's not a lack of effort. It's just a lack of control is what it is. And it just – he'll never be the same that he once was defensively. He's never been a huge asset offensively. So he doesn't really have anything left to prove either. He's a part of one of the greatest dynasties the league's ever had in the Golden State dynasty. So, Draymond, what really do you have left to prove? I would just say retire, go be an analyst somewhere, and you have a podcast too. Like, you have good stuff going for you. I think your time in the league is done. I'm not the type of guy that just tries to push a guy towards retirement, but we all know a player done when he's done, and you're done.
We were totally forgetting about the best part of the game is, of course, in the fourth quarter when the opposing team is shooting free throws. If the opposing team misses both free throws or 3 free throws, how many they get, it has to be at least 2 though. It can't be like a missing and one or anything. Then the fans get free Chick-fil-A. And and it doesn't happen a lot. This is actually the first time it's happened all season that the fans have gone free Chick-fil-A. But now if every player on that Golden State roster to make that dream come true for the Hawks fans, it was Jimmy Butler. And it was in the fourth quarter. It was in crunch time in a game that was still relatively close.
This was when the Warriors were starting to inch back.
Yeah, the Warriors got the deficit down to single digits. I believe it was an 8-point game when he was at the free throw line and he drew a foul to cut within 6 and he missed both free throws. The energy of State Farm Arena, the rowdy fans behind the goal, got the Hawks the win, took away those free throws, and they got a free chicken sandwich to go with it. So I thought that was really cool. It just kind of added to what was already a feel-good game for these Hawks fans.
We do have one more game to wrap up on here tonight, and it was a game that actually happened tonight. You know, the Hawks now winning the back-to-back against the Hornets and the Warriors, and now they're hosting a 76ers team who they just destroyed at home a couple weeks ago. So this is a game that was supposed to be as nice and comfortable, and this game was as nice and comfortable as we thought. Joyner, I'm going to pass it on to you. Breakdown. Andrew and I didn't really get to watch much of this game. We were practicing our golf abilities. If that's what you want to call it. But Joyner, I want you to break down what went right for the Hawks tonight. Why was this just another nice and smooth game for Atlanta?
So Trae Young had another great free throw line another great free throw line appearance, shooting 10 for 11 from the free throw line. Didn't shoot 100%, but you know that's fine. Still getting to the line 11 times is crazy, especially when he's a deadly shooter like he is. Okongwu shot 6 for 7 from the field, 1 for 1 from 3, shooting finishing with 14 points. Zachary again making his statement towards the rookie of the year award with 22 points and two rebounds and 2 assists. Trae Young had a double-double with 28 points and 12 assists. Muhammad Gay had acquired 6 points, and Dyson Daniels was struggling from an offensive standpoint, but as we all know, he did not struggle from a defensive standpoint. And this was the game where he surpassed Chris Paul for the sorry for butcher saying this, but the most steals for the most steals in NBA's regular season with 200 200 regular season steals. I know we've said and like and our Bang Bang Yang, of course, shooting 6 for 9 from the field, 5 for 8 from three, finishing with a nice 20 piece. Dominic Barlow finished with 13, and the rest of our bench was pretty quiet. But you know what? That's okay. It was against a pretty beat up Sixers team, and that's what it was. I mean, because the Sixers didn't really. I mean, I honestly have no idea who the Sixers even started. I know none of these guys. That's how bad the Sixers lineup looked.
I want to. The Hawks have already visited this team. Last week when we did this, or I guess the week before we did this episode, before spring break. It's the revisitation of Chase's favorite head coach in the NBA. He came back to Atlanta.
I love this dude,
and I gotta say, I mean. Boris Ning had 6 threes in that Golden State game, and then comes back because this is a back-to-back because the Hawks played the Warriors literally last night, and then he comes back and hits 5 threes. Trae Young has been farting around that 30-point total for like the last 5 or 6 games, so his average is getting way above that 25 mark as of late, and of course, the bench did, their thing. I guess it was kind of a quiet night. Karis LeVert's really been on a quiet tear as of late. I know his minutes have been restricted a little bit because of the injuries that he's been dealing with. But, I mean, he hasn't really reached that 15 to 20-point total in a while. But it doesn't matter because the Hawks are still winning games. And that's what I love about the debt that Landry Fields has bought over the trade deadline. But I want to talk about Quentin Grimes because Quentin Grimes, if you remember, the last time we played Philadelphia, had 35 points. And then he comes back in this game and drops a smooth 26. I mean, he shot 7 for 18, 3 from 10 from the three-point line. So it wasn't like he was knocking him down on a consistent basis, but he did his thing to, I guess, execute as much as he could, but nonetheless, and then this is kind of like just like the Hornets game and really the Golden State game. This is, to me, 3 straight games that the Hawks really felt like they had control for all 4 quarters. Not really much stressing going on, and Dyson Daniels getting 200 steals, the most since 08 and 09. I mean, this is a feat that I feel like the league is being way too quiet about. And because aside from really Damian Lillard, I can't really think about a premier guard to really, I guess, plant their identity in this lost art of, I guess, the guard position entirely. And that is
when it comes to defense.
That is being strong defensively because most guards that make a name for themselves in NBA, it's always on the offensive side, and they always lack defense and quick hands. And I feel like Dyson Daniels is kind of bringing this back to light. And it's really just incredible.
And I will say it's not just Dyson Daniels this tonight that was strengthening his case for Defensive Player of the Year. It was also Zachary Ricochet also adding another feat to strengthening his position to Rookie of the Year. And if you didn't see it, watch it. The Hawks have a post on the Instagram. It's going to be on social media. Zachary Ricochet quite literally went on a Kyle Korver. He went on a 12-0 run by himself within like 2 minutes. It was just a fun little highlight. It's so beautiful to see a guy. And I've brought this quote up many times before because it broke my heart. I remember when, like within the first month of the season, when Zachary Ricochet made the comment that, and when I was in France, I was the best player in the league, but now I just feel like a regular guy. But Zachary Ricochet, you are no longer a regular guy. You are a young stud in this league who yes, this is a pretty horrible Sixers roster, but you're a young guy, you're a rookie, and you're coming here and you're placing guys who's been in the league longer than you have, and you just completely showcase how you can take control. And it wasn't just tonight; it was against Golden State, it was against Brooklyn, it was both nights against Charlotte, it was the back-to-back against Indiana. You are showcasing how easily you can take control of the game as a rookie, which means this is just a glimpse of the true player you can be. It's just a beautiful thing to see, and especially in a situation where the Hawks could easily lose Trae Young this offseason, if not this offseason, before the trade deadline next year. It's beautiful knowing we already have a beautiful rose ready to blossom. But fellas, before we wrap up this episode, is there any final comments? Well, actually, no, I'm sorry. There is actually one more thing that I do want to talk about. We haven't even brought it up really this episode, but it was before the Golden State game last night. Joyner, it was you who actually first broke the news. I didn't know anything about it until you said it, that Clint Capella was officially rolled out for the rest of the year.
I know y'all broke the news because I didn't hear about it. Y'all broke the news. That was y'all. Yeah,
maybe it was Andrew.
You guys.
Yeah. I think Andrew was the one who brought the news.
I didn't know anything about it. So I want y'all to talk about that to me. I don't know what happened. Like, what happened?
I know it was a hand injury, and I know it's a hand injury he's been dealing with for a little bit now, but I think it's now surgery he has to get on it. That's going to cause him to miss the rest of the season. And yes, it's heartbreaking. I know we like to, make our jokes about Clint Capella, but if we're being real, this is one of the better seasons Clint Capella has had since he's been on the Atlanta Hawks, especially on the defensive side when it comes to rim protection. I remember the start of the season, I would say how soft he was inside defensively, but he was really starting to turn that around and became a really elite rim protector. But to flip it on the bright side, yes, this sucks, and we can see this as a bad thing. But one thing this does do for Atlanta was, because we all know that as soon as Clint Capella leaves, Onyeka Okongwu is going to be the sole starter for the Hawks. And really, this year already, we've already put Okongwu in that starting position. He's really just blossomed. But it's Muhammad Gay. It is a guy from Washington State we drafted just 2 years ago, who's already showcased elite talent in the G League. Right. Okongwu and Mo Gay is the future for the centers for the Atlanta Hawks. So this is a prime time to show. We already know what Okongwu can do in the starting position, but this is a prime time to see what Muhammad Gay can do right behind him, and for the Hawks to get a glimpse of the big man core that we have, not only defensively but offensively as well, because they both have beautiful aspects on both sides of the ball. I was expecting somebody to speak up after that. Well, I guess, Joyner, do you have any thoughts on the situation?
No, I'm still. Not wrong, but just praise it for Capella. Hopefully the surgery went well, and hopefully we can get him back healthy for next season.
If he is on the team next season, because that's also a question mark.
If he's on the team for sure, but
wherever he goes.
Yeah.
Hey, do you have any thoughts on the situation?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, so
you guess.
Well, never mind. Clint Capella, it was really just kind of the timing was really unfortunate because, this was an aggravated injury that he's really been dealing with since really the late stages of January. But it kind of just he was really, because I think the art of Capella's game that he lost that I guess over the span of really last season was his ability to dominate the rebounding. And we kind of saw that kind of getting developed back in his game plan or his game plan on the court this season, especially since the post-December part of the season as we moved to 2025. He was really asserting himself on the rebounds. And even just right off the gate, he was complimenting what Quinn Snyder had as the three-headed monster with Capella and then Okongwu off the bench. And then we made the transition and put Okongwu as the starter and Capella off the bench. And Capella was really complimenting Okongwu's development by establishing that veteran experiences, helping him get better, and then doing his thing when he came on the court to relieve Okongwu. But like you said, Chase, it's kind of I don't want to call this a blessing in disguise, but it's opened up the door for the future of the Hawks front court or back court, excuse me.
Yeah, backcourt with what's going to be a Kongwu and Muhammad Gay, and it's given Muhammad Gay a chance to now for a Kongwu to send through what he learned for Capella and pass that down to Muhammad Gay, and then them two grow together. That's going to be a solid foundation that the Hawks are going to have inside the paint for years to come if that duo can stay together, because Muhammad Gay has so much to offer on defense, and I hate to say it, that's what Capella has really lacked. Even when he was, I guess, at the height of his career, he was never that dominant defensive guy. I guess in Houston, he kind of was.
In Houston, he definitely was.
I'd say he was more of just a good defensive rebounder, but not really a rim protector.
In Houston, he was, but in Atlanta, yes.
I wouldn't even say. I think he was a solid one, but he never was like that top of the league kind of big man, but I see that potential in Muhammad Gay. But I definitely, of course, pray for a speedy recovery for Clint Capella.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It's unfortunate that we're not going to get that veteran guy who has tons of playoff experience. It's unfortunate that we're not going to get that with Capella when the playoffs come for the Hawks.
We will in a coaching perspective, just not a playing perspective. But hey, that 2017 Houston Rockets team when they made the Western Conference Finals, Clint Capella led the league in blocks.
He never led the league in blocks. He had several years where he led the league in rebounding. But I promise you, Colin never lead. Hey, but speaking of, the Hawks do have a very tough test on the road Tuesday night against the Houston Rockets, like you just mentioned.
That is true.
The Houston Rockets are right up there in the top of a very, very stacked Western Conference. This is a young core for Houston that has developed, I think, quicker than what even Adam Silver has thought. So this is going to be a very fun, youthful, and quick game, and this is really going to see the Hawks take that 3-game winning streak to a tough atmosphere. And if the Hawks win this game, we will finally get to that 500 mark, which the Hawks have been searching for so long. So there's a lot riding on. But Chase, do you want to close this one out?
Jordan, I'm gonna let you close it out. Why I proved you wrong?
Okay, Jordan.
Well, as my co-host Andrew just said, we have a tough test with the Hawks on Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday against the Rockets. Then to close out the month, we play the Heat and the Bucks. We have a tough next 3 games, but I'm feeling hopeful that we can continue this this winning into the month of April. But I got nothing else to say.
Oh, well, I guess with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of the Talkin ATL Hawks podcast. I know this was a longer episode than usual, but of course we had a lot to break down. But next episode, we'll get back to our normal format. But as for me, Andrew, and Joyner, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you in episode number 21. Caw!
Caw!